This week on the latest episode of The Big Show, we're officially in the dog days of summer as we discuss the loss of a legend, Warner Brothers shelving an almost $100 million movie, the season finale of two of my favorite shows, and we'll preview the Lakefront Film Festival. And if we have time, we'll take a ride on the bullet train. Charles Kirkland Jr. and I will have all that and more on the latest episode, Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon. And for all of you guys who haven't seen us in a minute, man, it's summertime, man. This is the first year, Charles, that I can remember that I took this much time off between doing shows, but I think we can make up for it by doing multiple shows as we get into the award season that's going to officially kick off in about a month. I'm headed up to Toronto this year. You didn't tell me whether you coming to Toronto or not. You got Telluride coming later this month. That kicks off in Colorado. You've got the Venice Film Festival, which is over in Italy. The Toronto International Film Festival, that's up in Canada. And as I said, after that, it's the New York Film Festival, it's Middleburg, and we are knee deep into award season. So all that stuff is coming up, and I think we will pick up the pace on shows to make up for the absence of time we took off this summer. So I said all that to say, I'm Tim Gordon. That's Charles Kirkland Jr. Charles, how you doing, brother?
I was doing really good until you mentioned doubling, tripling it up on shows, man. Who got time for that? It's the summertime.
We normally do a show. This, like I said, this is the first year that we've really have kind of taken this much time off. But there's a good reason, which we will talk about as we get into the show today. But as I said earlier in our tease, really, really difficult weekend that we lost a couple of legends, but we're going to probably focus on a couple on this show. We lost like several, but we're going to focus on two on this show. In addition to that, the Lakefront Film Festival is coming up. So this time next week, we will be in the festival mode. So Charles Kirkland, of course, who's one of our programmers, along with myself, we'll talk a little bit about the Lakefront Film Festival. And then this very peculiar story that came out from Warner Brothers this week, Charles, about Batgirl, that, film that's like $90 million, $95 million, and Warner Brothers decided that they would not just take it out of the theaters, they won't even put it on the platform. And it's funny. I got a call yesterday from somebody that was asking me about this, and they were like, "Man, this movie must be bad. It must be bad if you're willing to eat $100 million. It must be a really, really bad movie." So we'll get into that a little bit, but I have thoughts as well. And then, as I said, a couple of my favorite shows, and I know we've talked about them. Well, actually, at least one of them we've talked about here. Of course, the Orville, which ended its season 3 today, as well as the Bear, which I latched onto last week. I'm okay. Trust me, Charles. I don't steer you wrong on shows. You need to watch the Bear. It's like, I think it's 8 episodes. They're like under a half an hour, like 22, 23 minutes. You're welcome, is all I'll tell you. It was really, we'll talk about it. And then finally, as I said, today, also coming up a little later on, the Bullet Train with Charles, I'll take the responsibility because I need to check with Charles to find out what movies he's going to see, because we normally hit them together. So I assumed that, either you weren't back or you already knew, but I saw the Bullet Train earlier this week, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So any thoughts on anything, Charles, we're going to talk about before we get into it?
The Bear? Okay. No, let's get into it because I need to know what this thing is, the Bear.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start the show off, man, by saluting a couple of folks who were really, really important in film, and I don't want them to be forgotten. Mary Alice passed away. And for people who are like, who is Mary Alice? Well, let's just say it this way. Mary Alice was the black mother in a lot of movies. She was the black mother, but not just the black mother. She was the black mother who brought what I call a lot of dignity and class in playing that role. And as I wrote on social media, because she passed away on like a Thursday, and I kind of sat on it for a couple of days, and I was like, I really need to compose my thoughts because Mary Alice starred in films like Sparkle. I think the last big thing that Mary Alice did, a lot of people remember, was The Matrix. She played a professor named Letty on A Different World, where she was great. I saw her in Beach Street, where she played the mother. She played the mother a lot. She was also in Woman of Brewster's Place. So I've seen a lot of Mary Alice. I wouldn't call them Mary Alice films. She was a character actor who literally played not necessarily the same role over and over, but a variation of a role, because she reminds me a lot of, when I think about people like Jonathan Majors, people who have seasoned faces even when they're young, or like a Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman has looked like that since he was on Electric Company in the 70s.
Yeah.
He's grayer now, but I'm saying that look, that mature look, Morgan Freeman had that 50 years ago. Mary Alice had that look when I first saw her on film in 1976, to the same way she looked right now. So it was very interesting. But Mary Alice, and I wrote, she played, as I said, she played the black mother. And I remember what stood out to me, and Charles, you've seen the original Sparkle, right?
Yes.
And there's that great scene where her daughters are on stage singing, giving him something he can feel. And of course, what is her name? Lynette McKee. Her oldest daughter is dealing with this guy who's not good for her, a guy named Satin. Remember that? Satin. And there's that famous scene when they're singing, giving him something he can feel. And Satin is looking at the stage, looking at sister. And Mary Alice is giving him this glare. You've heard the phrase, if looks can kill.
Oh, she's slaughtered the man, slaughtered him.
And I put that picture on social media. I was like, wow. So that, to me, the fact that I was able to find that picture kind of speaks about Mary Alice. And when the late Gloria Foster passed away in the middle of the Matrix franchise, Mary Alice came in and was in part, I want to say it was Resurrections and whatever, part 2 and part 3 of the Matrix franchise. So
Resurrections and Revolutions.
Thank you. So Mary Alice, man, fantastic actress. An actor who I would say a lot of people, I would say 95% of people outside of our community, people who look like you and I, probably have no idea who Mary Alice is. And people were perplexed, like, what is all this love this Mary Alice is getting on social media? Like, you don't know. So rest in peace to Mary Alice, man. An amazing career, very distinguished actor who always was working, because anytime there was a black story, you needed a black mama, and Mary Alice was available to do those films.
Always there.
Always there, man. And so we transitioned from Mary Alice to Nichelle.
Before you do, I was in Orlando,
right,
when I heard about the passing of Mary Alice. And so, Orlando's theme parks, Disney, all that kind of stuff going on. Nothing was being said on television down there in Orlando about Mary Alice passing.
Right.
I come home to our hotel room and I said, I can't believe nobody. And my wife had the nerve to say, "Who's Mary Alice?" To which I pulled up a picture and she goes, "Oh." Yeah, I mean, she's one of those actors, you don't know her name, but when you see her face, you've seen it in our community. We've seen her everywhere. So it was a real blow to us when when we found out that she had passed. So rest in power to Mary Alice.
So let me read what I wrote. I just found it. It said, it took me a couple of days to process the loss of this tremendous yet unsung performer that I call the consummate actress, Mary Alice. One of my first memories was her in Sparkle as a loving yet concerned mother. That glare she pierced satin with as her daughters performed is forever burned in my memory. She played a mother in so many films: Beach Street, Laurel Avenue, To Sleep with Anger, The Education of Sonny Carson, and many others. She also left indelible impressions as Letty Bostic in A Different World and as the Oracle in the last two Matrix films. In our lives, we grow comfortable with certainties, things we see often and identify our lives with. Mary Alice has been that for me for close to 50 years on screen. Thank you for all the performances and your quiet dignity that you embody with every performance you gave. A job well done, Queen Mary. And as Charles said, rest in power to Mary Alice, an amazing actor who, if you know the face, you know who she is. So that's the easiest way to say that one. So we transitioned from Mary Alice to this one that I wrote probably within an hour after writing the Mary Alice tribute. I wrote this: the hits keep on coming as another landmark and groundbreaking actor joins the ancestors. Nichelle Nichols, who originated the role of the startlingly beautiful and fiercely intelligent Lieutenant Uhura, which was written specifically for her by Gene Roddenberry, and I'll explain that a little later on the original Star Trek series, passed away. Reportedly, she once wanted to leave the show, true story, but her biggest fan, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, talked her into staying, telling her how much of a role model she was and how important she was for our representation on television during that time in the late 1960s. Nichols also served as an ambassador for NASA's recruiting, among others. Sally Ride, she recruited. She inspired Nate Jemisin. The first, talking about Sally Ride, was the first American woman in space. Charles Bolden, the current NASA administrator, was recruited by Nichelle Nichols. She and William Shatner performed the first interracial kiss on television. Hey, man, so Nichelle Nichols, man, her story, and I've been promoting it and talking about her on shows all week. I was on with Arch Campbell talking about her here in DC. I called in to Solomon Jones in Philadelphia and I forget the station, WRD, I think it was. So I've been doing hits about Nichelle Nichols, and I'll just say on our show, Charles, the fact that in the, let's take it back a little bit. Right now, currently, the Black Reel Awards for Television, the 6th annual, will be coming up on Sunday night, August the 14th, right? And our theme this year is celebrating Black history on television, right? The Black performer on television. And it's funny, well, not funny, but this is how God works, that, we plan this stuff months in advance before the loss of a Mary Alice, before the loss of a Nichelle Nichols. And I'm just here to tell you that right now, if you're young, if you're younger than Charles and I, and you're alive, you've grown up on a planet where we've had a Black president and, you got hip hop and representation all over the place. Let me take you back to a world when I was like really young and Charles might not have been born yet, where there was nobody Black, like on television in a featured role, like a starring role, a recurring role. Black folks might have popped up on an episode of this or popped up on an episode of that, but there were no shows that had Black leads or co-leads until 1965, when I Spy comes along, Bill Cosby, Robert Culp. The following year, Gene Roddenberry, who had done a show earlier, Charles, called The Lieutenant in 1964, creates this sci-fi show called Star Trek. And his whole idea with Star Trek is I want to do this kind of ethnic diverse show. So you had Sulu, who was Asian American. You had Nichelle Nichols, who was African American. You got aliens on there, like, the Vulcan, who was Dr. Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner in the lead. But Gene Roddenberry had this idea that he wanted to make space very diverse. You wanted to include everybody in space, right? So Nichelle Nichols, who had played, she had guest starred on a really good episode of Lieutenant. He remembered her and cast her in his role. And the name Uhura came because at the time she was reading a book, an African book with Uhura in the title. Roddenberry liked that and was like, that's your character's name, right? So as we said in the story earlier, Charles, she does the first season of the show. Her real love was singing, dancing, and being on Broadway. She had toured in Duke Ellington's band and Lionel Hampton's band, and there was a role that came up that she wanted, and she went into Roddenberry's office on like a Thursday or Friday and gave him a letter of resignation. And Roddenberry told her, I'm not really willing to take it. I want you to think about it over the weekend. Come back and see me on Monday, and we can talk about it again. So she bounces out the room, convinced that she's walked away from Star Trek. She goes to a fundraiser the next night, which might have been either an NAACP fundraiser or some civil rights organization. And she's on the dais, being one of the celebrity judges. And the organizer comes up and says, your biggest fan wants to meet you. And she's thinking, okay, yeah, Star Trek's on TV, is popular. I don't know who this is, some Trekkie. And she turns around and Dr. King is standing there. And she's shocked. She's like, and Dr. King tells her, he loves the show. It comes on past his children's bedtime. It's the only show that he allows them to watch after hours. And he tells her how important she is. Representation, as we're talking now. She tells Dr. King she's going to quit. Dr. King goes, you can't quit. She goes, what do you mean I can't quit? He's like, you can't quit. He said, what you're doing right now is a huge step. It means so much. And if you walk away from that show, that character's not written for a Black person. It's not written for a woman. Roddenberry can cast anybody. He can cast an alien to play Lieutenant Uhura's part, right? So after she thought about what Dr. King said, she went back into Roddenberry's office on Monday, told him, if you still want me, I'll stay. Roddenberry opens up the drawer and takes the letter that she had given him. He had torn it into 1,000 pieces. He pulled it out, gave it back to her. Like, here you go. And she says, thank you, Gene. You were going anyway. He wasn't going nowhere. He was like, Gene was like, thank you. And as they say, the rest is history. And as I wrote, she ended up boldly going where no Black person had ever gone before on television. And think about the Star Trek franchise and what it has become with people like LeVar Burton. We've got Black captains. It was such an important piece that happened. And I'll also say this, Charles, before I throw it over to you. It's almost as important as in the early 2000s when 24 was a hit show, right? With Kiefer Sutherland, right? And Dennis Haysbert played the president in 24. That is largely one of the reasons that people talked about America became familiar with the idea of having a Black president, that Barack Obama was able to do that because people at home and in their living rooms had gotten comfortable looking at this dignified Black man in this popular series. So when you tell me about representation, I'm old enough and have learned enough, Charles, that even if I wasn't old enough, that I can remember certain benchmarks that have occurred from research and things I've witnessed. These are important moments, and Nichelle Nichols is huge because, as I said, Dr. Cosby in 65 and I Spy, Nichelle Nichols in 66, and then along comes Julia with Diane Carroll in 1968. This set the stage for everything that we saw in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s in television. But these young pioneers that came along and showed us that these things were possible are very, very important. And I want people at home to never forget that. That is huge to me, Charles.
Okay, so where do I go? I think I can't. I can't remember what comedian it was that was talking about Nichelle Nichols, and she said when she was little, she saw Nichelle Nichols on television, and she ran to her mother and said, "Mama, there's a black woman on TV, and she's not a maid." From that point on, like you said, it was just her presence on screen, just lifting up all these young girls. Said I can be more than what they telling me I can be. I can go to the stars. That's the impact that Nichelle Nichols had upon not just television, but the world. Like you said, Martin Luther King said, you got to realize this is a once in a lifetime role. You have an opportunity here to make changes that may never have happened if you leave this show. And so I know I can think, like you said, of Bill Cosby, who was a year before. And I know we saw Eartha Kitt on Batman on a couple episodes, but that was still even after Nichelle Nichols took this role. And for her as a singer and a dancer, she stretched out, and she had done a couple little roles, like you said before. I think she was in Peyton Place and some other things. But for her to take that role, to be the icon, and just think about not just within the Star Trek universe, but just within show in cinema nowadays, it's commonplace. But
Man
and
who
so
fell to earth.
we say, oh yeah, black woman, but back then,
Right.
it was the oddest thing, the weirdest thing that could ever happen. But there was no flack, there was no not social media like today. But back then, people would write letters if they were upset, but there was no complaints. People didn't even complain about her playing this role. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And
Right.
so, there were some complaints, but on the whole, people just accepted her in the role because of what the show was about, just about how it was all these communities coming together.
Right.
So it landmark moment, and I was sad to hear her that she had passed. And again, I was on vacation when it happened. But the impact that she's had on my life and lives of women, black women, and the world is just immeasurable. Immeasurable.
Look, bro, I got you, man. So Nichelle Nichols, man, 89 years old. Man, yeah, I just have so much respect when you talk about representation, man, and what it means. As in the note, Charles, as I'm getting ready to transition to the next piece, I went to the theater last night. Went to the first time I think I've been at Arena Stage here in Washington, D.C. in like 3 years, man. I went to see a play based on Frederick Douglass called American Prophet, which I thought was really, really good. A lot of times I go to see these productions, Charles, and as a guy who reviews films for a living, especially when already where the story is going and the history of a story, it's like, okay, you sit there, you go, okay, how are we going to execute this? How is what are we trying to do? And I thought it was a nice PG-13 take on one of the giants in our movement, man. Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois. All these guys, man, were pioneers who were speaking out at the time when it wasn't popular for people who look like you and I to be those people, and the tremendous heat that they've taken, because it's not like you're doing it in 2022 where you would take heat, but you're doing this 150, 170 years ago when the world was much different than what it is right now, man. So good production, Charles. If you get an opportunity, I think you should check that out. But I just want to segue really quickly I wasn't going to talk about Warner Brothers right now, but let's jump into the Lakefront Film Festival real quick, Charles. third annual Lakefront Film Festival is going to be a hybrid event this year. We've got a couple of in-person things that are going to happen, but most of it is going to be virtual again because, I don't care what you tell me, there's monkeypox and BA5 and all these other strains of COVID that are still out there. So, yeah, whether you choose to acknowledge COVID, it's still there. So as they said, if you ain't checking for COVID, COVID's checking for you.
Meanwhile, Tom Cruise is out there breaking records with $100 million a week opening weekends. People going to the movies, Tim Gordon.
Hey, man. Okay, well, I'm just telling you, we're doing a film festival this year. Charles Kirkland programmed it. There are 52 films in there. There's some really, really strong films, man, including the DC premiere of Coleman Domingo's short that was just released called New Moon, based on his one-man play. I think it was called A Boy and His Soul or something to that effect. But it's really good. Charles has checked it out. Uh-oh. I'm hearing rumbling behind me, man. It must be a big storm coming. I heard. Sorry about that. We've got a film from Charles Murray in the festival. We've got a bunch of international films that are produced by people like Spike Lee. So I am really proud of the slate of films that we have, Charles, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
We've got a stellar lineup of films. To the likelihood, the strongest film from years past would not have made the slate for this year, and that's just saying all the quality films that we have this year. I know you mentioned New Moon, but one of my favorite films that we have is called now I can't think of the name of it. Oh, the one that I can't say it because I don't want to give away who won and who didn't win as far as the jury prize. We got a grand jury this year. Of people who come from all across this country to watch films and judge them for us. That's how big time the Lakefront Film Festival is now, and I'm just over the moon about the slate that we have, the films, the participants. We got films from 13 different countries in our festival this year, and it's outstanding film festival that we're having starting August 10th through the 13th.
Yeah, I was just pulling up some of these titles, man, because there are a couple in here that really kind of. I'm not saying that all of them are good, but Arts and Crimes by Crimes was a film that I saw early this year that made our festival, and I think it's in competition. Oh my God, I see you put it in there. Okay, our closing night film is in there. We can now officially announce that it debuted at Sundance, DC premiere of Breaking, starring John Boyega and Nicole Bahari. Really good film. And it features the last performance from the late, great Michael K. Williams. Last performance is in this film. Other films that I think you should look out for. Dancing Joy, Charles, just as a brief aside, beautiful short film where I think it's based on
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Thank you. And they're dancers from around the world. Amazing film. My thing this year is I'm so in love with the slate of films that I think, Charles, this sets a bar for us in our third year, right? That I think we can never go below the bar of what we've set. Seriously, I'm not, all joking aside. I'm saying that to the audience, but I'm saying it to you as a part of our programming team. I am very proud of the movies that we selected this year. A local film that we have called Days. I would recommend that. You should check that out. Dog in Transition. Funny.
We've had a number, I would say 7 or 8 films right here from the DC area. Filmmakers.
Yeah, we have a lot. And you know what? And that I love as well, because we should be embracing the local scene in filmmaking with films like The First Step, documentary that's in competition that's based on Van Jones bringing together a group of people from South Central LA who have lost people to the crack epidemic, and then bringing them together with a group of families from West Virginia who have lost family members to the opioid crisis, and how the two of these factions get together to pass a law. I thought the first step was powerful. Really good movie. I can't say the title of another local film, but just say F 'em right back. That's at the festival. Her Call. Remember this, Charles? Her Call.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one, too. I mean, there are a lot of good films. Headlights.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned The Mason Ring.
I was getting ready to get to that. The Mason Ring. The Mason Ring. I'll just say it that way. There was something I wanted to say, but leave it alone. My friend Lucius. That was interesting. My friend Lucius, and let me find the title of it. Behind the Curtain, Local 22 are, in our third year, we have alums that have come back. Carrie King, who directed Behind the Curtain, Local 22, and what is the gentleman's name? My friend Lucius. Directed by Joshua Reed, whose film, what was this film from a couple of years ago? Was it Mezzo
Piano?
Yeah. So we've got alumni coming back presenting films at our festival. I've already told you Coleman Domingo and New Moon. If you don't see anything else, Mason Ring and New Moon, my friend Lucy, there's some really good films. That's what I'm just trying to tell you. Let's see, Charles. The Panola Project, which I thought was really good. That debuted at Sundance, and we have it in our festival. Precious Hair and Beauty.
Oh, man.
To me, is interesting, not for what it is, but the filmmaker's vision on how they tell the story. And if nothing else, you should check that out, because the third act of that is really wild. I was like, wait, what's happening? Pinky's Dream, I saw that was pretty interesting. I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm just saying that did not go where I thought it was going. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then we have another film from France called You Resembled Me, which I know it's played at a number of festivals before it's come to us, but a wonderful tale.
Ooh. Tales of the Accidental City. You might like that one too. So yeah, I'm trying to go through Winter's Prayer, You Go Girl, and You Resemble Me. So now we just introduced the closing night film is going to be Breaking, thanks to Bleecker Street. So we'll have to acknowledge them on the site, Charles. But we also have two parts of our talk series. We also do a talk series as panels and conversations and storytellers. So this year, I don't think we're going to do the panels, but we do have one conversation and we have one storyteller series, right? So the conversation series and storyteller series. This year in Storytellers, it's the 25th anniversary of Love Jones. And writer-director Theodore Witcher will be a guest at this year's festival and will be doing a Storytellers. You do not want to miss that. That was pretty good. And we also have, for our conversation this year, one of the best actors, and New York Times a couple of years ago named him one of the 25 best actors of the 21st century. Rob Morgan is going to join the festival. So there are a lot of goodies going on at the Lakefront Film Festival, man. And we still have a secret film that we need to announce. I have to tell you, Charles, I have some information on it, but I'm waiting for the ink to dry. I'll just say this with the secret film. The secret film is not going to happen during the 10th to the 13th of the festival. It's going to happen maybe a couple of weeks later, but it is a Lakefront Film Festival film as part of the festival. Buy a ticket to the secret film. I can't tell you what it is, but you can tell from my enthusiasm, it's going to be good. Charles has already seen it, so it's good. And from what I understand, the stars of the secret film, along with the co-directors, the two people that directed it, will also be in the house. So you want to be in the house for the secret film for the 3rd annual Lakefront Film Festival. And if you ain't online buying tickets, you're sleeping on one of the strongest slates that we've ever had at our festival. And we only going to continue to get better. So I'm just telling you, we're not staying here. This thing has levels. We going to level up. See, Charles, I like to say level up more than we going to the next level. No. We leveling up, man. We keep taking the festival, leveling up. So, Charles, any final takeaways on the Lakefront Film Festival where you can buy tickets virtually at lakefrontfilmfestival.com? Or is it lakefrontfilmfest.com?
Yeah. I just want to say this, and I know this is going to be news to you, but I really want everyone to come out and enjoy the Lakefront Film Fest, because this will be my last year working at the Lakefront Film Festival. Sad to say, but this will be my last year at Lakefront, and we'll see what happens in the future, but no more Lakefront for me.
All right. I mean, I love how I hear this on the radio. I mean, that's nice. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate that. All right, we'll talk a little later on. Charles Kirkland will be at the Lakefront Film Festival. Don't even trip on that. We know this is like a Nichelle Nichols sort of a situation. Thanks for your resignation. Let's sleep on it over the weekend. Get back to me. We'll talk.
Well, right. I tell you what, if Dr. Martin Luther King comes and tells me I need to stay, I'm staying.
We can find a Dr. Martin Luther King like individual. All right, man. So here we go, man. It's we're deep into the show now. Let's talk about what does it take for a studio, and this is driving me crazy with the lighting in here. This thing keeps getting dark and light, like I feel like I'm in a tunnel. What would it take for a studio to decide, Charles, after they have prepped the film, shot a film, edited a film, and the film is ready for release, to go, yeah, we're going to pass on that film? What do you mean you're going to pass on it? You're going to show it on HBO Max, right, as an original? Nah. You're going to put it in the theater? Nah.
Wow, I heard it that time.
I heard that. Okay. Wow. So, Charles, give me your thoughts on Warner Brothers deciding to shelve Batgirl, that they will not release Batgirl after spending $95 million.
I am mystified. First of all, I thought that this film was supposed to be released on HBO Max, and they decided not to do it. This movie was supposed to go into the theaters, and for some reason, the executives at HBO said, no, the executives at Warner Brothers Studios said, no, I'm not going to do it. I've been one of the people who said Warner Brothers has released some crappy movies throughout their time as Batman versus Superman, and I've torn them down. And to me, for them to come forth and say this movie is so bad that we, who've given you some dogs in the past, are not going to release this film, I'm like, come on, something happened. This is one of those films now everybody wants to see just because they don't want you to see it. And I'm mystified, like I said, that something like this could happen. I've never heard of this before, where a film could be shot, edited, produced, ready to go, and they just scrap it. I've never heard of this before. Have you?
Wow. Okay, so here we go right here. Let me just read this. So Warner Brothers is saying publicly that it's $70 million. They're saying the people behind the scenes are like, hey man, it's over 100, right? Warner Brothers called it, and I quote, irredeemable, Charles. They said this film, they had been showing it to test audiences, and that it was so poorly received that the studio decided to cut its losses and run. And for the sake of the brand's future, it's a DC disaster. They think it's unspeakable. Batman is going to be irredeemable. Wow. Charles, I gotta see this movie, man. I've seen some bad movies in my time, But man, how bad? I mean, that movie's got to be bad. And think about this for a second. Suicide Squad, the original with Josh, what's his name? Who did not Josh, what's his name? Who did Justice League and Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder, yeah.
I'm trying to think, what is the worst superhero film you and I have ever seen? And I'm talking about modern. I'm not talking about Take Me Back to Flash Gordon and Supergirl and all that stuff. I'm talking about recently. What's the worst? What's the worst superhero movie that's come out? And I'm trying to think, what would it be? I mean, people didn't like the first Thor, right? Or Thor: The Dark World, I think a lot of people claim is like the worst one, which I just watched it again recently. And, you know, you've heard me say on this show many times that, you know, hey, man, it's like DC's MCU is like a quilt. And, you know, it's different patches on the quilt, but it covers you up. I'm trying to think, what has
the first Hulk is so bad that Disney doesn't even claim it. It doesn't.
You're talking about the Ed Norton Hulk.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do something here because this lighting is driving me so batty that I'm gonna take this filter off because I just don't understand what is going on.
Here I am. There I go. Here I am.
Right, I'm in there, then I'm not in there. It's just like, dude, man, like, let's go with a nun.
Warner Brothers films have not ever been that awesome. I mean, some people say that they liked Man of Steel, which I take a
see, now I thought you were going there. So Man of Steel, you know, Aquaman was pretty good. Wonder Woman, the second Wonder Woman, people didn't like that at all. Wonder Woman 19 or Wonder Woman 84 or whatever it was. But Charles, I find it difficult, and I'm just telling you this as a guy that's watched a lot of movies in my time, and so have you. I find it very difficult for people at home to get them to understand that when you're putting $70 to $100 million into a project, there's the pre-production, right? You know, show me the script. This is what the story is supposed to be about. We hire, you know, the producer hires a director who comes in, tell me your vision. What are you going to do with this character? You map it all out. It's storyboarded. So these are the scenes we're shooting. There are hundreds of people working on a movie of this magnitude. If you don't believe me, just hang around for a Marvel movie and watch all of the individuals that work. So there might be 1,000 people that work on a movie that costs $70 to $100 million, right? So every day we're shooting the movie. The following day, there's this thing called dailies. We come in and we watch the stuff we shot the night before or the day before. We have an idea of this is how the film is taking shape, right? I find it unimaginable, Charles, that you would make a movie that would have a budget like that with major stars in it. Been watching the dailies all day. The studio has reps that come down and sit there and watch it. So I'm sure they're going, okay, well, this is what the movie's doing. This is what we got going on. We get it back into the editing bay and they take all the stuff that they've shot and they're putting it together. And when they put it together, what happened? How is a movie irredeemable? I've never heard that phrase in a movie because I've seen some terrible movies that people like, we got to get our money back. But who eats $100 million, Charles? How do you just decide this movie is so bad that if we put it out there, we're trying to create our own DCU, and this movie will severely damage the reputation of our universe? Man, I got to see this movie. I got to see this movie.
And to me, also, I mean, like you said, there's so many eyes that have to be on a film from inception to it's still, I don't know. But
what the hell? What is going on?
Okay, your directors, Adil Arbi and Bilal Farah, they also did Bad Boys for Life. They did a couple episodes of Mrs. Marvel, and now it's this. And I'm like, what does that do to your reputation as a director when you complete a movie and then it gets shelved, just thrown in? I mean, it's not like there's Zack Snyder where people are like, oh, well, we want to know what Zack Snyder did. Well, I tell you what, actually, this is creating that same kind of clamor that was created for the Snyder cut of Justice League. People want to see this film now. It may be horrible, it may be as bad as they say it is, but people are now like, it can't be that bad that you would get all the way to the finish line and then stop. I mean, it's like Usain Bolt running a race, and then he just decides he's going to run to the infield instead of running across the finish line. What? It never happens. It never happens. And so, I don't know if this is because at first it sounded like it was a publicity stunt that they were pulling. That they say, "Oh, well, we're not going to. It's irredeemable. We're not going to do it." Never have I heard of this before. And so the buzz that is being generated by just them doing this kind of the promotion, I don't know. I'm willing to bet at some point in time down the line somewhere we're going to see this film, and we're going to be able to judge it for what it is.
All right. Well, so look for information. I'm assuming that at some point it's got to resurface. It's going to resurface someplace. Somebody's going to leak it, and we will be the judge and be like, oh my God, I understand why they did that. Woo, that's bad. So we got about 10 minutes left, Charles. Quickly, the Orville wrapped up season 3 with an amazing, the last 2 episodes, fantastic.
Man, wait a minute, time out. I don't want to hear about the Orville.
I'm just kidding. Can you see now? You're delaying time. Let me just fall through. Orville, like I told you, great season. If you haven't had an opportunity, you can check out all 10 episodes on Hulu. You'll thank me later. The tone is much different. Got a little goofy in the last episode, but yeah. So that one wrapped up. But The Bear was the surprise, and that story, Charles, is about a young guy who was at the CIA, Culinary Institute of America. And he was training to be a master chef, very talented, got burnt out because his mentor just emotionally abused him. And he finds out that his brother commits suicide, and he comes home to run the family restaurant in Chicago. He comes home bringing back a lot of the skills he learned as a chef, and he hires a young African American woman and to be his sous chef. And the two of them had this vision of where they want to take this restaurant. And it's all the turmoil and things that happen behind the scenes as you get all this food. So think chef with a lot of drama. If you were doing Jon Favreau's movie without the punchy soundtrack, but all the food and all the drama of what goes on in that industry, I thought Chef was brilliant, man. I mean, it was 8 episodes. It wasn't long. And I just sat here on a couple of Saturday or last Saturday and just watched the whole season. Oh, you're hearing it too over there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was just me. But the Bear, I would recommend, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch that. I know they're bringing that back for season 2. They're bringing the Orville back for season 4. So really, really, really good series, man. So
where can I see this show?
The Bear is on Hulu, as well as the Orville, which you refuse to watch for reasons I don't understand. And I think it has to do with time, that you just don't have the time to watch this stuff, which is why you haven't watched it.
I'm normally, that's my go-to, but I love the movie Chef. And so if you say this is like Chef, I'm gonna have to check it out.
All right, man. So we got like how much time we got left? About 10 minutes. So let's talk about Bullet Train. So before I get into Bullet Train, let me just introduce it first. Bullet Train, which screened earlier this week and Charles Kirkland missed it. Why are you getting off the camera? I don't understand.
I figured I didn't have anything to add to this
no.
conversation.
I want you to listen. I'm playing off you, man. So this is a back and forth thing, even if you don't see it. Bullet Train is an action comedy starring Brad Pitt based on the Japanese novel Maria Beetle, published in English as Bullet Train. Film is directed by David, is it Leitch? I think I'm pronouncing that correct. Based on the screenplay. Leitch? Yeah. David Leitch, excuse me. I'm bad with names. The film stars, along with Brad Pitt, Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry, Andrew Koji, Hiroki Sanada. I might not be able to say his name, but I love that actor, man. Great actor. Along with Sandra Bullock. This film tells a story of train killer Ladybug, played by Brad Pitt, who wants to give up the life, but is pulled back by his handler, Maria Beetle, played by, well, never mind, that's a surprise. It's played by a character that I already named, in order to collect a briefcase on a bullet train headed from Tokyo to Kyoto. On board the train, he and other competing assassins discover their objectives are all connected. And Antoine Fuqua is one of the producers of this film. So that should tell you all you need to know about the muscular action that is in Bullet Train. So Bullet Train and another movie that opened a couple of weeks ago called The Gray Man are kind of connected as cousins, right? Both of these are these loud action films where stuff blows up. You know, we just create chaos. There's fight scenes. So they're very similar. And so I'm going to stick a pin in that and I'm going to come back to that. So in this film, Ladybug, played by Brad Pitt, and the film is through his perspective, has been given the job to retrieve an item off the train, Charles. And once he gets on the train, as I said earlier, there are several other assassins who also either are in possession of this or want this item. And the film is about, you know, as I said earlier, you know, we always talk about when they say God protects babies and fools. Brad Pitt is not a baby. So he's a guy who is wandering through this movie and he's got a lot of skills, but let's just say that
not the brightest.
I don't want to say it. Let's just say that Brad Pitt is the action comes through him, and we witness it. His journey is vast in this movie. He is in the mix, but you know, whether he's unlucky, lucky, blessed, it's just an amazing ride. My issue with the Bullet Train was that it's very claustrophobic. Everything is happening on the train. So unlike The Gray Man, where you had different locations and there are different things he can do, there's only so, I'm disappearing again. There's only so much that you can do on the Bullet Train. I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
I heard it.
I'm sorry. There's only so much. Brad Pitt, stop that. There's only so much you can do on the Bullet Train. The Bullet Train, I thought, was a lot of fun. I think, you know, this film and The Gray Man, I would equate, and I think I told you this, Charles. It's the kind of movie you just walk up to the concession stand, give me a big bucket of popcorn, a pack of Twizzlers, and a large cherry Coke, and you just sit there and you eat and watch the movie. Now, if you're trying to be healthy, first of all, you're not going to be eating at the movie theater because there's nothing healthy at the movie theater. But if you're going to go and watch a movie for a couple of hours, and I would do this with a double feature, bucket of popcorn, bottomless, drink, bottomless, Twizzlers, and just sit there and watch the movie, man. You know.
Okay, time out. This has always mystified me. If you get a bottomless popcorn and a bottomless drink, when are you going to go refill?
Between movies, I was saying, do it as a double feature.
Oh.
Or you can watch the first one and you can just nibble out of that stuff. Because technically, nobody's going to eat a whole bucket of popcorn at a movie. But I'm saying that to say that if there's any movie that is designed for that, it would be a film like Bullet Train, a film like The Gray Man. These movies are fantasy. You're not going to try any of this at home. None of this is going to happen in real life for people. It's just amazing to watch. There are a couple of cameos that happen in this thing that are absolutely funny because you're like, wait a minute, is that such and such? Wow, in this movie? Wow. So there's at least two of those, well, actually three of those moments that happened in this film. So, and it's funny because I read out the cast earlier. Yeah, there's one person that I didn't read that I guess is uncredited in this movie, which is really interesting because that person has several scenes and is very key to the story. But hey, man, I'm just gonna do this, for the love. Just put me in the movie. But Bullet Train, man, like I said, 2 months from now, you will have forgotten Bullet Train came out, just like you forgot that Nobody came out during the pandemic. Remember that? Remember Nobody?
Oh yeah.
These kinds of movies, man, they're entertaining in the moment. Nothing wrong with them. I mean, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it like a B minus. I thought it was fun. You sit there, you escape, you go, wow. It's not like the movie, this shirt I'm wearing right now. Nope. Really good movie of substance. We will be talking about Nope later in the year. Much different than The Gray Man and the film that we're talking about now, Bullet Train. But Brad Pitt, another solid performance from him in a film that, I'm sure they paid him a lot of money. He had a lot of fun making it. Of course, adapted from a Japanese story. So it had that style to it. I don't think it works well if you'd have taken that movie and made it in DC and called it Metro. Nah, Metro wouldn't have worked. Or put it in the Bay and called it the Bart. Nah.
It didn't work for Eddie Murphy either. So
yeah, I'm just saying. So I thought that there's a representation situation where people go, well, why are we making this movie about Japanese assassins and there's only like a couple of Japanese in the film and everybody else is American or British? I ain't in it, man. I'm just telling you that this is the situation. So Bullet Train is in theaters starting this weekend. I would check it out. Like I said, it's pure escapism. It's fun. Don't go in there expecting like a contender for any awards this year because it is not that. It is perfectly positioned exactly for the release date, which is right now, early August. You got to escape. We got a month to the heavier movies come out. This is light. This is fun. Just go with it and enjoy it. B minus for Bullet Train. So, Charles, you got anything else before I wrap it up?
Nope. I really wish I could. I can't wait to get to see Bullet Train myself. I don't know when that'll be, but I that's the kind of film that I love because I love The Gray Man. I pull my boys and we all watch that together. So
I don't think this movie is as good as The Gray Man. That's why I'm glad you brought that up. Because remember I said earlier they're kind of similar. I think The Gray Man is superior to Bullet Train. So okay. I would just say that much.
Which is why The Gray Man has got a sequel coming.
Rest my case. All right, man. So I think that wraps it up for us, my brother. It has been a long time since we've done a show. I'm glad that we were able to get back together. And, as I tell you guys all the time, please see something good at the movies. We've given you Bullet Train. Nope is in theaters. The Gray Man is on Netflix. Is there anything else, Charles, that we should be recommending to people that has come out in the last couple of weeks?
How about the Lakefront Film Festival? Don't forget to come out for that.
LakefrontFilmFest.com. One more time. LakefrontFilmFest.com. Get your tickets now. It's going to be an amazing festival. So, Charles, until next week, bruh, you take care, you enjoy, and we will definitely see you on the other side. And protect your neck, man, because the storm out there is serious. You take care, bro.
All right, peace.
All right, man.